You're listening to Thunderquack Podcast Network. This is the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of Thunderquack Podcast Network, where anything can happen. So strap yourselves in and hold on to your butts. It's Thunderquack time!
Hello and welcome back to the Thunderquack Podcast, the official podcast of thunderquack.com. You can get it early every Tuesday on patreon.com or wait and get it free every Friday on podcast services across the galaxy. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Cohen.
And I'm your other host, Amanda Conkin.
And this is our last episode of our series of Star Wars Ranked. So this is the Last Jedi Ranked.
We made it through a whole ranked series.
We did.
On Thunderquack. We said we would, and we did.
Yep.
We follow through on this podcast.
And we'll be taking a bit of a break.
Because you're having a baby.
Because my wife is having a baby, and I am assisting in the process. Yes. In whatever ways I can, and they tell me to. So there will be a little bit of a break, and then sometime in August there will be some sort of content. I won't be on it, but there will be something, and then in September we'll have some stuff as well. So if you're a subscriber and on Patreon and you're paying for stuff, it's gonna be a light month, but there will still be stuff in the month. So don't go canceling your Patreon subscription just yet. And then in October when we come back, what will happen is you'll get Quiver early. Is basically
because
the deal.
We'll be doing Quiver.
Yeah, you'll get Quiver early, and then
and the pre-show things still.
And the pre-show stuff. Yeah. So that'll essentially we'll do the same thing we've been doing with Thunderquack, just with Quiver.
Yeah, and I feel like the pre-show will serve a lot of the purposes that Quiver did right now, where we'll actually talk about the additional stuff.
Yeah.
Like we did in Thunderquack.
Yeah.
So which I'm kind of looking forward to, because then they're like sort of different podcasts that are sort of the same.
Yeah.
Yeah. Altogether.
I
just noticed that you have so the room is set up now that we're podcasting in.
Yeah.
I don't know if everybody knows that, but like from Goofy Movie, you have Powerline as a pop figure.
That's one of the many
cool
gifts that I have received from Matt Campbell, because he's
one
of the greatest people on the planet, and I'll say it on the podcast, one of my best friends. He'll be happy to hear that.
He's delightful.
He's getting shout-outs almost every week.
Nice. Well,
I hope he appreciates it.
I think that he is doing a really good job at being an awesome friend, because that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, he's the best.
I'm actually really excited. You need to let him know that I'm coming to Disneyland next year.
Well, you just did.
I did, yeah.
He listens to every episode.
I decided. So Mike teased me last week and said, Star Wars Celebration.
Yeah. And
we're going to Disneyland and you should come. And it was like kind of nonchalant. I've been like obsessing about it for 7 days, where I've been talking to people about how weird it would be for me to go on vacation with my friends.
And you came in tonight, and you were very sheepish of like, if you and Crystal maybe want to think about if it's okay if I could maybe come with you to Disneyland, because I think that would be really. And I was like, stop! You're coming with us to Disneyland, because it's always better to have extra adults when you're taking kids to Disneyland.
I'm so excited. Me and Car are gonna get Minnie Mouse ears, like the ears that we can wear around. Oh, it's going to be so cute. I've never been to Disneyland with kids. I've only been as an adult.
It's so good.
Oh, I saw a rant on the internet from somebody that has kids at Disneyland, and just like ranting about how like you shouldn't be allowed to go to Disneyland without kids. Anyways, it was...
Yeah, I saw that. It was serious though. They were
Somebody was serious. Somebody had gone to Disneyland with their kids and just hated their life. And I'm kind of like, maybe that's not the other people. Maybe that's just like, what you're getting into.
Obviously, Crystal and I went to Disney parks several times before Cara was born. Yeah. Last year was our first time with Cara.
Yeah. It's the greatest place on earth.
And the whole point is that everyone's a kid when they're at Disneyland. Exactly. Like, that's the whole idea.
I will say Tokyo Disney in particular has very few children. Like, it is a place you go on dates. Like, that was one of the coolest things about Tokyo Disney. The Winnie the Pooh ride at Tokyo Disney is full of 20-year-old girls. And it just made me so happy, because it's this Winnie the Pooh ride, and I was freaking out.
It's like an anime fan's
it's
dream,
just, I know,
right? Of like
it's
just
so
a bunch
great.
of pretty
And-
Japanese
and it
girls
was a
on
thing
a Winnie the Pooh ride.
that yeah, I mean basically.
Yeah.
And the thing that like got to me is that the store that's part of the Winnie the Pooh, there is a full Winnie the Pooh themed store. And it's not like they're selling like stuffies. I got chopsticks. I got a really nice like pillow for my house. I got wine glasses.
The Disney characters over
Oh.
there, like the iconography of them is bigger than it is here.
Yeah.
And it's like Mickey Mouse is one of the most recognizable, like the three circles, right? The circle with the ears.
Yeah.
It's up there with the Coca-Cola logo, the Nike swoosh, and Superman's logo, right? Like those are kind of the most recognizable images globally, where people instantly know exactly what that is. And Winnie the Pooh is so big over there.
It's just, it was like, as like, that is my favorite. Like I have, and these things, like I treat these glasses, like I only drink wine out of them in really special occasions because they're so pretty. And it was this, like I would have bought so much more stuff, but I had this like one bag coming back. Anyways, Powerline, very cool. There was like a Disney shirt here that I didn't buy, and it's like one of my
Disney store?
From Disney store, the Powerline with
gray,
the
it was like the heather gray one?
I don't know. It was long sleeves. It was like a jersey, kind of thing.
Oh, was that the tour one that had like
Maybe.
the dates on the back?
Yeah, I think something like that. Yeah,
there was another one that
cool.
was like a heather gray one that was like a Powerline album
I
cover
can't really
thing.
wear just the t-shirts because I don't really wear t-shirts, but I would wear like the long sleeve shirt thing.
I didn't get that Powerline t-shirt, and I was like, I'll get it next time. I'll get it next time. I'll get it next time. And then I went to go get it and was like, no more. It's a bummer. It's gonna be so much fun. If I had so much fun just thinking this week about the possibility of asking you to come to Disneyland, now that I've decided I'm coming to Disneyland, it's just gonna be the greatest year. It's like a year away. Yeah.
Devastating.
Yeah.
But anyways,
it's over.
It'll also be my first Star Wars celebration. So this year is my first San Diego Comic-Con. I've decided I'm not going to go again next year, but I'll go to Star Wars Celebration. I mean, whatever. Maybe I'll go to Comic-Con, but
people who go to multiple cons in a year are the most annoying people on the planet. I get so frustrated when I see.
Didn't we rant about this last week?
I just get so frustrated. It's like, what are you spending your money on? Where does this cash come from? How are you able to do this? I think it was in the uncut.
Oh yeah, uncut version that we ranted about last week.
It just, I don't understand. I don't understand how people are able, because like we're gonna do Star Wars Celebration and Disneyland next year, and we gotta start figuring it out now.
Yeah.
I can't imagine if I was also like, well, we're gonna go to Comic-Con too, and we're also going to New York Comic-Con and whatever, like to do a whole bunch of them.
I'm going to get to go to film festivals next year. I just realized that I have 2 films that I get to do festival circuit for next year.
Lucky you.
I'm so excited.
Let's jump into an email.
Good, yeah.
Hey, y'all, it's been a while. I figured I should write in. So first, I'm going to give you my rank of the episodes, Star Wars episodes. Nice. So here's Sarah Beth's. I didn't even have to say
you didn't, because it's the y'all. Hi, Sarah Beth.
Here's Sarah Beth's ranking: 6, 5, 4, 7, 8, 3, 1, 2.
Interesting.
So Attack of the Clones in the bottom. I'm assuming that this that Attack of the Clones is not Sarah Beth's favorite Star Wars. This is in descending or
8,
ascending.
3, 1, 2.
Yeah, 8, 3, 1, 2. So she's got the sequels right above the prequels. So original trilogy in reverse order: Return of the Jedi, Empire, A New Hope, and then The Force Awakens and Last Jedi, and then
the prequels.
Jumbled prequels with Episode 3 at the top, and then Episode 1 in the middle, and Episode 2 at the bottom.
I mean, the only saving grace of that is that Return of the Jedi is first.
Yeah.
But like, I'm really hurt that The Last Jedi is so far down that list.
Far down? I mean, yeah. We're going to have a conversation about it.
It makes me so sad.
I just finished watching it earlier today, and...
I mean, we're going to get into it.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how much I've watched that movie until I was reciting most of the movie. And it was a thing where I was like, I'm just going to turn this on in the background while I do other things. No. I ordered a pizza to myself and sat there and just watched The Last Jedi while eating an entire cheese pizza.
And it was the best thing you could have done,
It was the best thing I did this weekend.
Yeah. Here's the rest of Sarah's email.
Okay, sorry.
I totally prefer the original trilogy and newest movies to the prequels. Next, I have to say I've put off watching any of the animated series. I have watched the animated Clone Wars movie, but not Clone Wars Rebels or Resistance series. I now feel like I'm missing so much and need to watch all of them to get the full Star Wars experience, and my husband is very happy about this.
Nice.
I'm a bit behind on the podcast, but I'm working to get caught up. I'm really enjoying it, though. Thanks for all the hard work, Mike and Amanda. That's from Sarah Beth. Get into the Clone Wars. So here's the thing with the Clone Wars. It gets much better as it goes, and there's at least one arc each season that is awful.
Okay. Yeah.
So just knowing that going into it, there's also some stuff that I feel you can just totally skip over. And I threaten, but I should really put together my essential.
Yeah, because I would totally watch it like that. Because
there is. So
you should do it for the Thunderquack Quarterly, like the.
I should.
For the next one. Do your definitive Clone Wars list.
So the key to Clone Wars is that there's a trilogy in there just about Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah, which is
people are like, oh, I want the Obi-Wan movie, I want the Obi-Wan trilogy, and I'm like, the Obi-Wan trilogy exists. Yeah. There are 3 arcs in the Clone Wars that are Obi-Wan centric arcs that you could definitely just watch those 3 and get his story. And then there's a couple arcs that are very Anakin and Ahsoka that you could put together. Once the final season is out, you can definitely put together, actually I would say probably even more than a trilogy. You could put together a trilogy that is Ahsoka's journey. Mm-hmm. And then if I looked at it this way and I did, there's 4 trilogies in the Clone Wars, kind of. There's Obi-Wan, there's Anakin, there's Ahsoka, and then there's the clone troopers, but kind of revolving around. There's a very specific troop. Like there's these 2 guys, Fives and Echo, and it sort of follows Fives especially. Fives is very important to the Star Wars mythology, because he's kind of integral in Order 66, and I don't want to spoil anything else on that if people haven't watched and want to, because his journey is really great. Nice.
And he's a clone trooper?
Him and Echo are clone troopers, and those are like I can kind of just off the top of my head think of those sort of 4 trilogies, and if that's all you watched, you would get what you need out of the Clone Wars. And then there's maybe a couple of other one-off episodes that are really fun. Yeah. What my favorite episode in the entire series is in season 1, and it's called Trespass. And it's actually not a Star Wars episode, it's an episode of Star Trek. And it just happens to be inserted in the middle of it. It's Anakin and Obi-Wan on the moon of Pantora, which is a snow planet. It's like Hoth, but it's kind of all these like jagged cliffs and snow, and the Pantorans live on Pantora, and then this moon is orbiting Pantora. So Pantora, they're blue skin aliens. They're just people with blue skin, humans with blue skin, and they claim ownership of the moon. But then you discover, because the Republic puts an outpost and it gets attacked by droids, but then gets wiped out, and we don't know why until we get there and we realize that there's a native population on this planet, on this moon. And there's kind of some similarities to the Ewoks to that degree, but it takes place during the Clone Wars, but it's so close to the beginning of the Clone Wars. It's actually more like how the Jedi function pre-Clone Wars. Like it's sort of like how the mission would have gone with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan if it hadn't turned out that Darth Sidious was behind all of that, and Darth Maul shows up and changes everything. So it just ends up being a diplomatic mission where Obi-Wan and Anakin have to basically broker peace between these 2 peoples.
Cool. That is a Star Trek episode.
It's a Star Trek episode, and it's my favorite episode in the entire series. Cool. And it's so good. There's so much in the Clone Wars that's so great, so people should watch it.
That totally makes me think about like episodes that sort of stand alone as part of a series, but that are really good and give you some sense of it. And I will say, looking at Doctor Who, because it's got so much stuff, people know that Blink is one of the best episodes. Like, even if you haven't watched Doctor Who, people have talked about the episode of Blink with the angels. It's a good episode that stands completely on its own and you don't have to watch Doctor Who at all to get it. But the best episode of Doctor Who that completely helps by knowing about it, but it also stands alone, is Neil Gaiman's episode, The Doctor's Wife. And it is amazing. But it's like an episode that a lot of people don't really talk about. But if you like Neil Gaiman, I feel like you could probably watch it without any context from the rest of the show because it stands completely on its own. Like, it's like a little Neil Gaiman story that takes place in the universe of Doctor Who. And it uses, like, there's some things that it sets up for the lore, which is great. But there's also a lot of it that just is totally, like, self-contained. And it's really, anyways. I would love to know if there's other episodes like that of like shows that if you understand the basic premises of the characters, but you also like genre based, that you can watch a couple episodes.
What is it? I guess it's season 4 of Buffy, the one with the gentleman.
That you could totally watch that.
You just watch that. It's just
it's
great.
Brilliant.
It's that. Is it just called The Gentleman?
Yeah, The Gentleman. Yeah. No, it's called Hush. Sorry, it's called Hush.
Yeah. That is one of the best hours of television in history.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. And if you're a fan of Buffy and you've watched the entire series, it's that much better. But even if you're not, I think you can jump in and you can watch that and just appreciate it for the artistry.
It's the one that won them an Emmy, I'm pretty sure. Like, it's so good. And there's no talking for the majority of the episode. Yeah. But you also can totally get a lot of stuff out of it. Like,
and it's funny because it's in the midst of one of the most
boring seasons.
Yeah, hated seasons.
The episode season 4 is just absolute garbage. I mean, whatever. It's not.
I love
there's
all
worse
Buffy.
things. Yeah, I know. It's.
Let's jump into another email. This is from Sam. Sam Bunkowski, and Sam says, "Hey, what's up, Mike and Amanda? So I've been watching the Fast and Furious series for maybe 2 months.
Interesting.
And I've gotten through 7 of them. I wanted to know what your thoughts on the series were. Do you like them? What do you think about the cast? Do you have any cool, fun facts about the series?
Ooh.
What's your favorite one in the series if you like them? I personally have enjoyed the series very much, save for the second in the franchise, which is one of the worst movies I have ever seen, on par with Sharknado." That's from Sam Bonkowski. I love the Fast and the Furious franchise.
The second one Too Fast, Too Furious?
The second one is Too Fast, Too Furious. So that's the first one that I ever saw.
Oh, interesting.
I saw that in grade 12 because a couple of girls that I was hanging out with wanted to go see it, and I went, okay, fine, and went and saw it with them, and it was awful, and I didn't like it, and was like, this series is dumb, I don't like this series, and then other people love it and talk about it and are very vocal about that, and especially the guys on Kinda Funny, they talk about the Fast and the Furious franchise with a lot of reverence, actually. And so they did their in review series, which are reviewed and our ranked series are kind of
similar,
inspired by. And they did Fast and Furious in review. And so they put out an episode each week for each of the movies. And I went through as they released those and watched each movie. Only having seen Too Fast, Too Furious, and then Tokyo Drift.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Wow.
So then I went back, watched the first one all the way through. I'd seen parts of the first one, but not the whole thing. So watched the whole thing all the way through. Skipped over Too Fast, Too Furious, just listened to the podcast. Watched Tokyo Drift again, and then watched the rest of the movies for the first time as they were going through. And that series is such a great example of knowing exactly what you are and playing to your strengths. Yeah. And by the 6th movie, they had really figured out what these films were and kind of cracked a code. And it's very similar to the Mission Impossible franchise.
Oh yeah.
Where it's like the first 3 Mission Impossible movies, it's like, what are these? And then 4, Ghost Protocol comes out, and it was like, oh, that's a Mission Impossible movie. And then so Ghost Protocol, and then what's the one after that?
Henry Cavill.
No, that's the most recent one.
Oh.
I guess
did not know that there's one in between Ghost Protocol.
Rogue Nation.
That sounds right.
Rogue Nation's after Ghost Protocol, and then the most recent one was Fallout.
Oh, right.
Mission Impossible Fallout. So those three is like that's the franchise.
Yeah.
The first three, they don't even count. There's some stuff that they establish, and like some relationships and stuff like that are important in the other movies, but like
I quite like the first Mission Impossible. It's like
the first one's a very good movie. The first one's a very good movie, but the first one's a very good standalone film.
It's a standalone. Yeah.
And then the second one is an awful piece of garbage that has all style and no substance. And then the third one is a great movie as well, but was sort of like course correcting it back.
Yeah.
But then J.J. Abrams came in and did Ghost Protocol and just like J.J. Abrams did 3.
Maybe.
So
I just would love to like spend an hour with J.J. Abrams and just like
right.
Oh man.
So who did 4? I don't remember who directed 4, but now they've just got it figured out where it's like these movies are set pieces with a very loose plot to get you from one to the other. Yeah. And that's all it needs to be. And then if you can have some cool interpersonal stuff that connects through the movies, that's a reason to continue watching them. And that's the exact same formula that's Fast and the Furious. So Hobbs and Shaw comes out on Friday, doesn't it?
It feels like it's been coming out for months.
Right? That's what everybody is saying.
Yes, it's coming out soon.
And I can't wait. I'm excited. I'm so excited to watch Hobbs and Shaw.
It'll be fun.
Because to me, Hobbs and Shaw takes everything that's great about the Fast and Furious franchise and removes a lot of the stuff that's kind of okay. Because you're just taking Statham and The Rock and you're adding Idris Elba, and that is a recipe for success in my eyes. As much as I enjoy Vin Diesel, I really do.
Yeah. But I'm very excited that this has come up because it's an opportunity for me to talk about this because I don't know if I've talked about it on the podcast, but it's something that I've realized recently that I don't talk about it and people don't know this about me, but I do quite like cars. I don't know a lot about cars.
Yeah.
But I like and appreciate pretty cars.
Yeah.
And there's so many beautiful vehicles in Vancouver because
of reasons.
Because of reasons.
It has to do with drugs. A lot to do with drugs. And money laundering. A lot to do with also like young people moving here whose families have a lot of money and buy them vehicles that they have put L's on. Anyways, I think it all traces back to Gone in 60 Seconds. I loved Nicolas Cage as a child. Like, I don't know why. What a weird sentence. But sure.
You know who I loved as a child? Bill Pullman, Jeff Goldblum, and Nicolas Cage. Like, they were 3 of my favorite actors.
I don't understand how you're still single.
Come on, Independence Day is such a classic movie.
I do understand how Amanda's still single, but it doesn't have anything to do with what we're talking about right now.
Come on, it's just a contributing factor.
Sure. I mean, like, they might be symptoms of the same disease. They're not directly
not
related.
Directly correlated.
But there's a similar root cause.
Anyways, Gone in 60 Seconds, quite liked it. Car movie. I watched probably Fast and the Furious around the same time. And also, Paul Paul Walker was a teen heartthrob. Like,
oh yeah,
like I liked Paul Walker, and then I liked the Gone as like, and also action movies. I've come to realize in my like wizened age, I quite like action movies.
Yeah,
I don't like horror movies. I don't like mystery movies. I don't like thriller
you
movies.
hang out with a bunch of very artsy, very hipster, opinionated sort of
people.
Yeah, so I understand that you don't get to express these things very often, but this is the safe space for it because that's what Thunderquack is about.
But it's the thing where I watch action movies and I'm like, oh, again, we're going to get to it with The Last Jedi.
Yeah.
But like there's a formula for a really good action movie and it just is so anyways, The Fast and the Furious is a franchise that knows exactly what it is. And
it's super simple. Make characters that I love to watch.
Yeah.
Which is really just about casting the right people and letting them do what they're good at.
And do something fun.
And then action set pieces involving those characters. Yeah. And every once in a while, throw in something emotional into the middle of the action.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Because I learned who Jordana Brewster is through that and through Michelle Rodriguez. Michelle Rodriguez is amazing. Vin Diesel, it was also my first introduction to Vin Diesel, and then I loved the Pitch Black was like, I would never have watched Pitch Black if it wasn't for this. But I didn't really watch all of the Fast and the Furious movies because I'm a purist. So I watched the Fast and the Furious, and then I watched Fast and Furious. But I haven't really watched a lot of the other ones. But I feel like I really would enjoy them. Like Tokyo Drift is the Star Wars or like the Star Trek director dude, and I really liked Justin Lin. Like I just thought it was really cool when people were making fun of the third Star Trek, and they were like Star Trek, Fast and Furious. Anyways, so but I kind of liked what Justin Lin
Star Trek Beyond's my favorite of the three.
It's a great movie, and so I think I would really enjoy that. I just haven't sat down and actually had a time to go through all the Fast and the Furious movies, but as a formula, like I think they quite hit it on the head, and they're super fun. And like that's really what you say. You need the characters, and you need the moments, and you need like that's what it is. It's like it's a vehicle for character development, and like if you can get somewhere in the end that means something, it's more than just explosions. But,
yeah. You just want to care about the people that are in the middle of these action sequences. That's kind of the key. Yeah. And I think that's what a lot of action and sci-fi. It's Jupiter Ascending is always the example. Yeah. I don't care about any of those characters.
No. Yeah.
So
garbage job.
When they're in trouble, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. But so there's one of the Fast and the Furious movies. I think what is it? Maybe it's 6. Which one's the one where it turns out that she's still alive?
That's, I think, Fast and Furious.
Yeah, and there's the moment where she she's getting like launched out of a car or whatever, and Michelle Rodriguez is like about to die, and Vin Diesel like drives his car over the thing and jumps out, grabs her in midair, and then smashes into the windshield of another car, like across this
barrier or something.
It's like a bridge on the side of a cliff or something. Like I don't know, something ridiculous, and it's totally unbelievable. It's completely nonsense. Yeah. Of like they're both dead now. Okay. Yeah. But then like he shakes it off. Yeah. And they continue with the story. That's not even the part where she goes like, "Oh, I'm a good guy again." Yeah. Right. Like that's just the part where they capture her. Yeah. Yeah. It's very confusing, but whatever. But also that's why these movies are good, because like I want them to be okay, and even though it's dumb and they shouldn't be in that moment. Totally,
and you like believe it, and something that like people take for granted about 90s movies, but there were 2 females in that movie in like the Fast and the Furious, which is a rarity for like a movie like that to have 2 women in the movie that both contribute in interesting ways to like throughout. And I mean, anyways.
Michelle Rodriguez is good for that because you can put her in the movie and she's really just playing another guy.
Oh, she's so great.
But she's Michelle Rodriguez, so yeah, it's fine. Fast and the Furious is great. Hobbs and Shaw, hopefully we'll have it reviewed up on the site soon-ish after it comes out. It depends on when I get to go see it.
And see, here's my problem is that I actually didn't watch enough Fast and Furious to know who Hobbs or Shaw is.
Oh, yeah, because they come later.
And so I feel like
Hobbs is introduced in 4.
Yeah, that's what I heard, and then he like
and
bridges
then
over stuff.
He's in Fast and Furious, but he gets taken out of commission at the beginning.
Or something like that. We've talked about the Fast and the Furious before, because I feel like I know a lot about the different ones, but I just haven't like watched them all.
Yeah.
But anyways.
Cool.
Good times.
Let's get into...
Is there like another action movie franchise that I'm not aware of?
There are lots of action movie franchises.
But that are like, I don't know. I feel like that I would enjoy. I guess that was the caveat at the end of that sentence.
I don't know.
I need to find... Because most stuff I watch has a certain sci-fi or like fantasy
Have you watched the Predator
it.
series?
I actually liked Alien vs. Predator, but I haven't watched the full Predator series.
You should watch the first 2 Predator movies. They're pretty good. I mean, Predator 2 is a little bit silly, but Predator is a great film.
That has a sci-fi bent to it, though.
Oh, you just want like straight
I'm wondering
action.
if there's some straight action, because I want to know if it's an anomaly that I only like action movies with cars, or if
I'll tell you, if you want to know if you like a straight action movie, watch Assault on Precinct 13, not the remake, the original John Carpenter Assault on Precinct 13 from the 70s. Okay. If you can sit through that movie and like that's pure action, then that's 70s action, so it's a little bit slow.
I was gonna say that's probably not a good.
But like if you like that, then you like action movies.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because that is literally just like
I actually
straight
am
action.
realizing I need to watch John Wick. That's something I haven't seen yet. And that,
but even
really...
John Wick gets into fantasy.
Oh, okay.
Because
right, I'm so excited.
Because what they're doing is beyond human, right?
Yeah.
But they create a world in which it's acceptable. So there's like a suspension of disbelief where it's like, well, he can do that.
I think I like ensemble casts that are doing action. Anyways, there's a reason why we podcast about Arrow. Like, as much as I complain about it, I don't unenjoy the show. Like, I quite enjoy its actiony, and it really, like, you get the formula down for the action. Anyways, I'll stop talking about action movies.
The only piece of news we're going to jump into is just that Spider-Man Far From Home broke $1 billion, and that there were rumors circulating that the deal with Sony continuing. So what the deal that they made was for Tom Holland to star in first Tom Holland to be featured in 6 films as Spider-Man.
Oh, okay.
So to date we've gotten 5.
Oh.
That's Civil War, Spider-Man Homecoming, Infinity War, Endgame, Far From Home, and then we know that they want to make a third Spider-Man movie, like third solo Spider-Man movie, to finish out the home trilogy. The larger plan that has been rumored is that they want to do 3 trilogies with Peter Parker, with Tom Holland as Spider-Man.
Wow. So
the home trilogy, which is his high school years, another trilogy of college, and then another trilogy of him as an adult. Yeah, it's where to get the 3 stages of Spider-Man, because those really are like the 3 iconic
Man, is
parts
Tom
of his
Holland
life.
on board for that?
I mean, like, yeah. Come on.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is one of the most recognizable, most important characters in pop culture.
I mean, he is.
That's it's like, do you want to play Spider-Man for 9 movies plus incidental appearances in other films? Yes, of course.
Yeah.
I think that Tom Holland will play Spider-Man until they tell him to stop. Just like Chris Hemsworth is going to play Thor until they tell him to stop. Because Chris Hemsworth has been in Thor, Avengers, Thor 2, Avengers 2, Thor 3, Infinity War, Endgame, and now he's got Love and Thunder coming out, and he'll be in Guardians of the Galaxy 3 probably, right? Yeah. So
nice, I love it.
That's so 9 Thor movies.
So good though. He's so good. I watched some behind the scenes of like the Infinity War, like when he's wearing the suit, and it's like it's just a different version of that character because he has so much fun playing that character, and what can he do in such a stream. Anyway, sorry, you were talking about the news. Is it broke $1 billion?
So it broke $1 billion, and the rumor is that in order to make the third one, this one needed to make $1 billion. It needed to break that threshold. And that's like Sony wants to make money, so they're basically saying they're incentivizing Marvel Studios to push these movies in order to continue to use that character. And some people are like, well, I don't know why Sony doesn't just give that character back, because it's Spider-Man and he's the most valuable character in the Marvel stable, right? So they're gonna hold on to that character and his ancillary characters for as long as they can.
So, but they just get residuals, right? Like it's like they like.
No, it's their movie.
It's their movie. It's
the Spider-Man Homecoming and Spider-Man Far From Home are Sony Pictures films in association with Marvel Studios. Oh. When Spider-Man appears in Infinity War, that's a Marvel Studios film. Gotcha. That's a Disney Marvel Studios film.
And they've given him the rights as long as they can keep that.
So they can do that as long as Sony gets the profit from
the other ones.
The other ones, which is why they say, like, that's why the deal, and it sounds logical to me, of like, well, we want to make sure that this hits that, because Marvel is going to push that character and make that character popular, and then it's going to benefit Sony. Mm-hmm. But like, they don't want them to just have him in there enough that we've got Spider-Man. They want Spider-Man to be important. And what they've created with Spider-Man and Tony Stark, he is arguably going into phase 4 the most important character. It's interesting that he's not currently slated to be in any of those phase 4 movies as far as we know.
Spider-Man, you mean?
Spider-Man. Oh, yeah. I think if we see him in anything, we maybe see him in Shang-Chi. Because that character is kind of going to be meant to play a certain role as well within this new universe. And Spidey is the new Iron Man, and then that's an Iron Man villain, right? It's
I didn't tell you we're talking about Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
I went home after our podcast last week.
You did.
And I totally realized that I had pronounced Simu's name wrong on the podcast the whole time. And so I was like sitting there being like, I don't even know how to pronounce this. And so I tweeted at him being like, I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. And he like is on his Twitter at 11 o'clock at night and responded to me with the correct pronunciation of his name. He is so cool. He's on his Twitter all the time and just responding to everybody.
Look, I'm going to call it right now.
Like,
okay, Tom Holland and his Spider-Man is the heir to the legacy of Iron Man in the MCU. Like, he's the new... sort of like there will be two of them. It'll end up being Captain America, Iron Man. There will be a dynamic of two characters at the head of the new Avengers. But Simu Liu is the heir apparent to Robert Downey Jr. Oh, yeah. I'm gonna call that right now,
nice.
Because you can already tell that character and him will be the same person, and that you can get, Robert Downey Jr. and and that's one of Robert Downey Jr.'s things is like he's like, I gotta distance myself from this because at a certain point it became a question of
am I just
where does Robert Downey Jr. stop and Tony Stark starts and vice versa. Like,
so cool.
He played that character in so many movies for so long that it started to become a thing of like who's the person and who's the character, right?
And it just this actor is like the Canadian Twitter account tweeted at him and he was like, you've made it when Canada Twitter, like it's like the same as being knighted. He's just so good at like recognizing where he came from and where he's going, and it's just like
we're just rooting for him. He's a great actor with a lot of charisma, and he's getting recognition on a global stage, and so you just want to cheer for the guy because he's just a wholesome Canadian. Just no scandals, please. Just no scandals. Like, let's just keep this one pure.
You can get through some scandals. It's fine.
Yeah, no, he's gonna be great. He's gonna be so great. Yeah, and Spider-Man is gonna continue to be awesome, and everything's gonna be fine.
Yay!
With the Marvel,
let's just
stuff.
Have movies for many years to come.
Yeah,
it's all good. So much content.
Yeah. Let's talk about The Last Jedi.
Okay.
What are you looking at on the?
I'm just looking at the we're recording on stuff, and there's like a little thing at the top, and I'm just paying attention to the recording.
Okay, it hasn't turned red.
I know it hasn't. I'm excited. It's not what it was like last time.
The Last Jedi, released in 2018, directed by Rian Johnson,
who I had never heard of.
Oh really?
Yeah, I hadn't heard of him.
Looper is a great movie.
That's what everybody says.
Great movie. Yeah. Brick is good too, but Looper is top tier. We're talking about standalone episodes of television. One of my favorite things are movies that stand on their own.
Oh, nice.
They don't need sequels. It doesn't need to be a franchise. Looper is one of those movies. It's it's self-contained. It is what it is.
That's what everybody has said. I feel like I would really enjoy good. Looper. Plus, I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
It's great sci-fi, and it's time travel.
You know who would be good in the cinematic universe, the MCU, is Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I'm impressed.
Sure.
I'm like,
he's not allowed.
He's not allowed.
No.
Okay.
No, because he played that terrible version of Robin in The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh yeah.
he's in superhero movie jail.
Superhero movie jail.
Yeah.
I love it.
Well, movie jail is a thing, and he's in superhero movie jail. It's like sometimes you get to be reborn as another character, as Michael B. Jordan and Chris Evans.
I was going to say Chris Evans is the king of being reborn in movies.
But I just don't know if Joseph Gordon-Levitt has paid his dues in that respect yet.
He's an interesting...
That interpretation of Robin, signing off on that. You know what it is? It's not even that interpretation of Robin or where that character goes in that movie. It's, why would you agree to be that? Well, of course, you're going to agree to be it because it's the biggest franchise at the time and it's a Batman movie and you're going to make a bunch of money and it's good. So, of course, you're going to agree to it. How could you be satisfied with that character's arc, knowing Chris Nolan's not making any more Batman movies?
Oh, right, yeah.
Like, it is such a tease, and I want to put a word in front of tease in order to emphasize how much of a tease that is, but this is an all-ages podcast, so I won't. So you guys can all fill that in. It's so bad. It's not... It's like that's the only word...
It's in like an unsatisfying.
Yeah,
arc
it's
for
like,
that
oh, I'm going to
character.
put this thread in this movie that I have no intention of continuing ever.
Yeah.
And, like, I just, as Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I would be pissed off.
Yeah.
I would be mad. It's like, you set me up that I'm Batman now.
Yeah.
But I don't even get to put the costume on.
Yeah,
He just gets to see it. And then that's where the movie ends. And that drives me nuts. Because that would have been a great continuation
I
of
think
that
I've only ever
franchise.
watched that movie once. Like, I don't think that I've watched it more than once. Don't
That's
think
fair.
I need to.
It's
I
not
don't think
very
I need
good.
to.
I think I've seen it.
But
like
also
3 times.
Batman. Bleh.
Yeah.
Sorry. Ryan
Joseph
Johnson.
Gordon-Levitt, Ryan Johnson, they have a very tight working relationship. Joseph Gordon-Levitt is in The Last Jedi. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah. So you know when they crash / park their ship on the beach,
Oh, yeah.
and the guy
Says, he says,
He's
I
like,
told
oh,
him not to
yeah.
park there. Yeah.
that's Joseph
No
Gordon-Levitt.
way! Oh, that's so fun.
Yeah. So,
How exciting.
because they like working together. So.
Aw, that's so cute. I was always curious, like, when I watch it, I'm like, who are all of these people that get to, like, do cool things in this?
In
And
the
you're
sequel trilogy, they're all famous people.
Yeah.
So, like, in The Force
Yeah.
Awakens, we didn't talk about it on the last one, but the stormtrooper that Rey uses the Jedi mind trick on is Daniel Craig.
Daniel Craig.
James Bond, right?
James
So,
Bond,
yeah.
which is so cool.
Yeah.
And aren't Harry and William
They're
in
stormtroopers
in The Last Jedi?
Yeah.
Like, famous people all over the Star Wars
And
universe.
Gareth Edwards, who directed Rogue One, he's in The Last Jedi in the scene on Crate when they're all in the trench, and the one guy steps out and to use the binoculars, and then the other guy reaches over and he touches the salt to his tongue, and he goes, "Salt." The guy that's next to him that gives him the look of like, "Did you just put dirt in your mouth?
Yeah.
Like, why did?"
Yeah.
How is that important information in this moment? That's Gareth Edwards, and it's one
Ryan
of my.
Johnson.
No, that's Gareth Edwards.
Where's Ryan Johnson in the movie? Because I thought he was that was him.
He is in the no.
He looks just like Ryan Johnson.
No, they don't. They're both white guys with brown hair, but they do not look the same.
Maybe.
Ryan Johnson is in there somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't remember where he is off the top of my head, but let's talk about the actual movie and not just trivia of who's in it.
That's fair.
Obviously, The Last Jedi has been surrounded by quite a bit of controversy. Controversy, as the British would say. And I, for the life of me, cannot understand how it persists. I understand how it happened in the moment, but I don't understand how it can persist. Because this movie is objectively a great film.
It's so fun.
It is hands down the best shot Star Wars movie out of any of them.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Like, every single frame in this film is exquisite in so many different ways. There's a quality to it that's not in the other movies. And The Force Awakens has a little bit of it with sort of that
it has
grainy,
like a J.J. Abrams
but it's a
twist,
J.J. Abrams
right?
sort
like
of. It's there's an artificiality to Star Wars movies that isn't in The Last Jedi. It is so authentic, and you are so engrossed in it, and I think that's why the Canto Bight stuff throws people off.
Because it's so out of sorts, because that's Star Warsy, and the rest of it is so grounded and it's
not classic trilogy Star Warsy, it's prequel trilogy, right? And I talked about that when we talked about The Force Awakens, but it is and that was for me, because I like elements of the prequels. Coming out of The Last Jedi, I was like, that whole casino planet thing was so weird, and it totally just kind of took the movie in this other direction, and I can't put my finger on it. And then on my third viewing, I was like, oh, it's the prequels. Ryan Johnson likes all of the Star Wars movies. He's I'm gonna use the quote fingers, but he's a real Star Wars fan. Right? He appreciates the prequels for what they are. It doesn't mean that you have to agree that they're great films, because they're not. We've been over this at this point. They're very, very problematic movies.
They're kids' kids' movies.
But they're kids' movies.
That's the thing about watching The Last Jedi that really struck me, is because it's the only movie, I would say, out of all of them, like, even with The Phantom Menace, where you care about kids. Yeah. And I will say, like, that is something that has been missing in, like, you see it through the eyes of these kids, that's the whole point of, like, taking it full circle. And this is why, like, I cannot wait to see Rise of Skywalker and have everything come full circle. Yeah. Because I think the thing that has always rubbed me the wrong way is Anakin starting out as such a young kid in The Phantom Menace. Yeah. But you forget that the movies are made for young boys. Like, that was the first audience. That Phantom Menace, that kid, that's who you were supposed to be when you were, like, enjoying these movies. And I think that The Last Jedi is the first film out of all of the Star Wars that have been successful at actually putting young kids into that role and having them, like, you feel for these kids throughout the whole thing. And it's such a cool, like, it's just so cool that they get to experience it. Like, it's for them, like, the hope and the generations and what they're going to see, that, like, these stories resonate with them.
And giving the idea back to people. And this is my favorite thing about The Last Jedi, as well as The Force Awakens, because this is Rian Johnson picking up the ball that J.J. Abrams passed him, right? Mm-hmm. And that is the idea that anyone can be a Jedi. Yeah. Because that's cool. The original trilogy, Luke is just some kid from some backwater farm that discovers, oh, you have this power and you can become a Jedi. And that's supposed to be a message to everybody of, like, you can be a hero. Mm-hmm. You have it inside of you. You just have to believe in yourself and feel the Force, right? And then the prequels come along and say, well, you also technically have to have these microscopic organisms in your blood, which is fine. It doesn't negate anything. But the interpretation, I think the false interpretation that a lot of people pulled from that was that not everybody has these in their blood. Right, yeah. The important part was not that Jedi have these, but that Anakin Skywalker is comprised mostly of these things. Right, yeah. And the point of that is not that makes him more powerful. The point of that is there's something off about this kid. Yeah. There's something different about him than there is about other Jedi. Yeah. And that doesn't come across because a lot of the storytelling in the prequels doesn't come across. Yeah. But then in the Clone Wars and in other stuff, it fleshes that out a little bit better, and you begin to understand, oh, wait, he was probably an experiment by Darth Plagueis and Palpatine to see if they could create life with the Force in order to... I believe the end goal of that was for them to create new bodies that they could transfer their essence into and live forever. Interesting. Right?
Huh. Yeah. Well, that's a full thread that doesn't get full, like...
No, it's really not in the movies, though it is actually in the movies.
Because you don't, like, think about, like, people just forget about the fact that, like, he didn't have a dad.
So to me, the other part of that is that, I mean, like, it depends on how you want to view things, if that's the Force working through these agents in order to create Anakin Skywalker, the Chosen One, or is Anakin Skywalker an aberrance? Right. Should he not have existed at all? Yeah. Is he a genetically engineered super Jedi? Yeah. What does that mean? And then along comes Rey, who is a true virgin in the Force, meaning that she comes from no one. Yeah. Which is the important part of The Last Jedi. That's why I say this is my favorite part of this story. The important part, is that she comes from no one. She is not important by virtue of the fact that she was created by Darth Plagueis in a test tube and then implanted inside Shmi Skywalker, or however that's supposed to work. Yeah. She is not the descendant of genetically engineered Anakin Skywalker Super Jedi. She is the Force manifesting in one person to restore balance to the galaxy. Yeah. And that hope...
I'm getting goosebumps as you're talking about
that
this.
Like, hope extends to those kids, especially that one boy with the broomstick at the end of the movie, who we discover he has the Force and he can use the Force. He's not a Jedi. He hasn't been trained.
He's unimportant.
That's not how it works.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like Han says in The Force Awakens, like, that's not how the Force works. It's not, oh, you just use the Force, but it's also not, you must be a Jedi. Like the as Luke says, the Force doesn't belong to the Jedi.
Yeah.
And to think that if the Jedi die, the Force dies is vanity.
Yeah.
And so it's like, yes, it's a kid's movie.
Yeah.
But in the greatest fashion, it's a kid's movie that doesn't talk down to kids.
Oh, no.
It presents them with concepts that are above their understanding with the expectation that they will rise to meet it.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's how you raise good kids.
Yeah.
And that is how I am raising my kids.
Yeah.
Is I don't talk to them. I don't talk down to them. I talk to them as I would talk to anybody else.
Yeah.
I'll break it down for them if that's what they need. But I want them to meet me where I'm at, because if I'm always just meeting them where they're at, they're not going to develop. They're just going to be children their entire lives. Right?
Someone commented.
But you need to challenge. You need to challenge kids, and kids' movies need to challenge kids. That's why the Pixar films are so successful.
Yeah, it's because they don't
talk down to kids.
But they meet kids where they're at. I do want to comment. Actually, I didn't tell you this, but down when I was in Comic-Con, we're talking to a lot of people that, like, some of them were listening to the podcast as well because they're DCTV podcast people, and somebody said that they really loved hearing Cara come on the podcasts and how you talk to her on the podcast.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just how Mike interacts with Cara. And I never had thought of it before as a thing where it's like, never once have we sort of been like, how are you, Cara?
Yeah.
Like, what, like, you talk to her like a real person. Do you want a podcast? You don't want a podcast? Don't be in here. This is what we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Like, it's just like I don't know. I think it's just a very cool.
I'm just matter of fact with her.
Right?
But, but like, I mean, like, and I worked with teenagers as a youth leader, and it was always really important to me when I was doing that as well, that you don't talk down to them, that you need to respect their agency.
Yeah.
And that, like, this movie, it gives that back to that audience, I think. And I think that's because Rian Johnson understood that it was an intention of this movie. And I think that's where the adults ran into problems with it, is that they honestly didn't want to be challenged by a Star Wars movie. They wanted it to be comforting. They wanted their blankie.
Oh, yeah, no. And I will say the best part about this movie and why I love it so much is because
is when Kylo Ren has no shirt on.
Oh, I mean, obviously that part, but aside from that, it is a movie for our generation, for the crapshoot of a world that we are living in, where the big bad Snoke guy that's ruling the world is actually not important, and the person you have to watch out for is the spoiled little white boy who, like, the two of them
that cosplays as Darth Vader,
that cosplays as Darth Vader, but like, who thinks that he should run the world?
He's a white supremacist,
like that's
neo-Nazi.
What it is. Who thinks that everything that came before them is unimportant, and that they know what's best for the world. And then you also have the leader of the army, who should be the one person that's going to work with you, who wants to kill you the moment that they see you're down because they know what a threat you are. Yeah. And they're such a snively little, snotty little wiener, but they have so much power that these two men are going to rule the galaxy. And it's just like, that is so real that it's not the big bads that we have to watch out for. It's not the Cold War. It's not Russia. Yeah. It's the boys that think they know better and they don't need to listen to history.
So you have the perspective of Rey.
Yeah.
Which I love. And then I relate so much to Poe in this movie, because Poe's journey in this film is one of...
I don't like him in this film, just so you know.
Okay, I'm going to turn you around on it. Because by the end of it,
effort.
Because by the end of it, he figures it out, right?
Does he apologize for being such an a-hole?
Well, no, but they don't have time for it. And I mean, I think that when he introduces himself to Rey at the end, I think that's him going like,
No, there's people
you're
that know
the most
more than me.
important
Yeah,
person
yeah.
here.
It's not me.
He's like, I'm Poe.
I shouldn't just automatically
Poe
take over
before
for
that,
Leia.
Poe
Yeah.
before that, just to skip to the end,
Okay.
Poe before that would have been like, hey.
Right. Yeah,
And it would have been like, you know who I am. I'm Poe Dameron. I'm the greatest pilot in the galaxy. Poe at the end of The Last Jedi walks up and goes, hi, I'm Poe Dameron.
Right.
And then she goes, I'm Rey. And he goes, I know. Because you're the most important person on this ship. Right? Princess Leia is right over there. Sorry, General Organa is right over there. She'll always be royalty to me as well, right? But she's right over there. And yet, Rey is the most important person in the galaxy, arguably, at the moment, right?
Yeah.
Like the fate of the galaxy pivots on her, and unfortunately, on the other side of it, on Ben.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And Poe needed to go through what he went through in this movie in order to get there at the end where he can serve the greater good.
Oh my god.
That's his arc.
Oh no, Mike, you did turn me around because now I'm like, he's gonna support her in the third movie and it's gonna be Finn and Poe going with Rey. It's not the three of them going together, it's they're gonna follow Rey wherever she needs to go.
She's Luke Skywalker and they're
one.
Han and Leia going like, we'll shut down the generator, but like, you need to go confront Vader, I guess. Like, that's the most important thing, right? God. Is you gotta go stop Vader and the Emperor.
I dislike that you turned me around on that. I mean,
so his journey,
has to get there by being a
his journey is so relatable to me because it's what... You can go back and you can listen throughout Quiver and you can hear me go on this exact same journey of... I respect women. I totally respect women. Women are great. Strong female characters. I love them. Unless they step on my toes.
Yeah.
If they get in my way.
Yeah.
And then it starts to be like a, like, well, yeah, but like not at the cost of the characters that I relate to. And then over the course of that, it's like, well, okay, so I was wrong when I said that, but like my feelings are still hurt to my feelings are irrelevant. This thing that I am, white, cis, male, blah, 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 heterosexual, all of that stuff, we had our turn, and it's everybody else's turn now. Everybody else has to share their turn. White, cis, hetero males, we got our own turn for the last few thousand years. And now we're going to let everybody else... We're not going to, but we need to.
Yeah, we're not going to. We're not going to actively do it.
Some of us want that to happen, but as a larger group, unfortunately, it's not happening. But Poe... First of all, Poe's not a white guy. But Poe, he maybe visually appears to some people as a white guy. I think that's one of the best things about his character, is that there's all these people who are like, Poe Dameron's so awesome. It's like, you're rooting for a Latino character, right? Because his, I think it's his father is it his father or his mother? One of his parents is Guatemalan. So, cool. But he plays a lot of white guys in movies. He goes on that journey. He starts with the Han Solo devil may care attitude of like, when you start an attack, you see it through, and Leia slaps him, and it's like, in the whole, there were heroes on that mission, dead heroes, no leaders. And that's the whole thing, is that like Poe thinks to lead is to be at the front of the vanguard. Right? And to
succeed is all that matters. Like to do the mission.
To hop in an X-Wing and blow stuff up, right? Yeah. And what he learns over the course of this movie, when his story intersects with Amilyn Holdo's story, is that there's more to leadership than winning. Yeah. Right? And it's fitting in 2018 that he learns that lesson from a woman in a position of authority over him, and he bristles against it, and he feels like he's put in a lot of work and he deserves recognition. And there's that moment, and it's a difficult moment for me to watch every single time, because I relate to him and I feel for him in this moment of I think she's a lieutenant, is talking to the whole Princess General Organa is in a coma,
Right.
and we don't know when she's going to come out of it. That's the good news.
Yeah.
And now the chain of command dictates that the obvious choice, and he's like getting ready to stand up basically, and then it's like Vice Admiral Holdo. And it's like, of course it's Vice Admiral Holdo. You're a squadron leader.
Yeah. Like it's
You're not an admiral.
Yeah.
There are probably 4 other people as well who are ahead
in command
of you in line.
But you're
right?
so like it's
But he's so presumptuous in that moment, and I can relate to that.
Yeah.
And it's and I think it's healthy to be able to relate to that and recognize it and go,
if you learn with the movie, and that's why
you don't deserve because you think that you deserve.
Yeah.
That's entitlement.
Yeah.
If you earned it, you'll get it.
Yeah.
Not always, but more often than not, especially in an organization like that, if you've attained a rank, then when the time comes, you know, you'll get your opportunity. And unfortunately, by the end of this movie, he is one of the highest ranking officers in the Resistance because there's nobody left.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see what his title, what his rank is in this one, because I imagine that he'll be General Dameron in the same way that Han was General Solo, right?
Oh, right. Yeah.
Which puts him pretty high up, right? But yeah, it's interesting. So that whole journey of him having to sort of figure this out and making a lot of the wrong choices. And I know that a lot of people don't like that about the story. You don't like it for one reason. I think a lot of guys don't like it because they see themselves in Poe Dameron. And rather than learn from his story, they go, how come he didn't get to do anything cool? And I'm like, he actually starts the movie in the raddest X-Wing sequence that we've ever gotten.
Yeah.
Coming hot off the second raddest X-Wing sequence we've ever gotten at the end of Force Awakens. And the third raddest, which is the best scene in that whole movie, is in the middle of the movie.
Yeah.
So, like, and this is the whole point, he's had his time to be an awesome X-Wing pilot. We know that about his character. If all we saw from him in the rest of this was him jumping in an X-Wing and being awesome, he'd just be Wedge Antilles. Yeah, and Wedge is a cool character, but Wedge doesn't have an arc in the original trilogy. Yeah. Wedge, he progresses in rank. He goes from being one of the guys he's just a pilot to being the rogue leader, right? Like, and that's a progression, but it's not an arc. He doesn't learn anything. He just progresses in life.
And it's the thing for Poe is it's the second movie, so that's why he fails. Like, you have to fail in the second movie, and that is
Han goes into carbonite, and Poe is a misogynist,
and just and I actually Holdo has grown on me. Because
Holdo's a fantastic character.
Fantastic. But when you first saw her, people would complain about the costume all the time. Yeah. Purple is my favorite color. Yeah. And it was like, in watching this one, I was like, how did I not immediately love her? Because just like, she's so great.
So the color theory on that is that Holdo, everybody else is wearing muted colors. They're wearing earth tones and these like muted greens and like that kind of lime green, but it's very muted. And then like the oranges and the Resistance are all in very similar outfits, very similar colors. Yeah. And then Holdo comes out in this brilliant purple, like this lavender thing with the lavender hair to match, and she sticks out like a sore thumb. Yeah. And the purpose of that is that we're supposed to feel uncomfortable. On first viewing, I think you're supposed to wonder
if she's qualified for...
Not if she's qualified, is she trustworthy? Because you're supposed to be in Poe's position of going like, why are you not telling me what's going on? Right. Yeah. Right? And the reason she's not telling him what's going on...
is for the exact reason why they fail. Like, the more people that know, the more people that can betray you, and then the plan fails. Yeah. Like, literally, Poe, the reason she didn't tell you is because you did exactly what she was trying not to do. Like... Yeah.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like it's great.
It's a need to know, and you just got bumped down to captain, which means you don't need to know.
And it just, but it's like,
go stay at your post.
But it's because of you, Poe. It's because of you that her plan doesn't work.
Yeah.
And I think, anyways, I hope that he.
But the interesting part of it is that Poe does exactly what Han would have done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Right? To a T. Like, if Han Solo was in that exact same situation and there were these people making stupid decisions in the higher-ups, and he was like, well, we got to save the day regardless, so let's do what we got to do.
But in any other movie, they would have saved the day. Yep. Like, that's the thing. Exactly. Everything would have been fine, but this was a realistic movie where it's like, of course it didn't work. Like, what Holdo says, she's like, a who now? Like, a stormtrooper and a who now are doing what?
Yeah,
you put, like, on bad odds.
And put us all at risk.
Like, it's just... Yeah. And it's like, that's exactly what he did. Yeah. And you are going to actually save everybody. Anyways... I will say... So
then when he learns his lesson at the end of the movie, when they're in the skim speeders and
he's like, working on
he's like, everybody peel off. Like, we're not going to win this fight. We have to survive this fight.
Yeah.
Right? Like, he's watching everybody around him die, and he understands for the first time what command really is, and decides, everybody pull back. Mm-hmm. And Finn wasn't there.
Oh,
Finn didn't learn the lesson with him, and it's this they're great foils for each other in that moment of like, Finn just keeps going, and Poe is like, no, pull off, like, no, stop, and he goes, and then he's saved by a woman, because the women are the only ones who make smart decisions in this movie. Another reason why there's a lot of man babies that are very upset at this film.
I will say the thing.
I'm not saying that everybody that doesn't like The Last Jedi is a man baby. I'm talking about a very
specific cohort. Yeah. I really want to like Rose more than I do, and that is my problem. And I think it derives from the fact that the Canto Bight story is boring.
Yeah.
I never really enjoy it when I watch it, and her and Finn have zero chemistry. Like, it really bothers me. Like, her as a character totally works. But there's just something when you have to play off of Finn, like, if that is the dynamic. But it also was a problem in The Force Awakens for me, that Finn and Rey had to play off each other. I also didn't think they had very much chemistry. And I think it really is Finn's fault more than it is the girl's fault, because in both of those situations, it was really odd. And I don't know what it is. Like, I can't quite figure it out. But, like, I don't want him with either of them romantically. Like, I don't in any way, I'm not invested in those.
I think the problem with Finn's character in these two movies is that he is disingenuous in both.
Oh.
And he's out for himself.
Yeah.
He's not a hero yet.
Yeah.
And the idea is that in this next one, he will, like, he's figured that out.
He's a toddler. Like, he was part of this, like, organization, and then one day decided that he didn't want to be a part of this organization and has no real life experience.
Like, it's not that he was part of it. He was brainwashed.
No, but that's what I mean. Like, if all you know is this organization, you have the social skills of a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
And so you don't understand how to relate to people, and therefore
his moment when Rose finds him going into the escape pod, and he has, like, his whole, like, resistance hero, and he puts on the persona.
Oh, yeah, he's like...
And then he, like, leans in and he goes, may the force be with you.
Yeah.
And it's like...
But it bothers me because it is so disingenuous, so I think he's playing what he's supposed to be playing.
That's what the character's supposed to be. That's what it is.
But the problem is that when you put them against somebody like Rose, who then is supposed to love him, it really doesn't play for me, because I'm like, why do you care about this guy? The only moment that I really like Finn is the Rebel Scum moment. Like, it's the only moment where you're also, like, Gwendolyn Christie, like, one eye, like, that performance is your eye. Yeah. And I'm like, you know what, it works. People like her.
You get everything you need in that moment from that character. Anyways, I don't think she's dead.
Oh, no, I don't think she's dead. I don't think she's dead.
And I don't think we'll see her in Rise of Skywalker either.
Oh, interesting. But she could be somewhere. Yeah. But that's the only moment
I think the next time we'll see her is on Star Wars Resistance.
Oh, good to know.
That's my guess.
Nice. Anyways, that's my rant about... But, like, because I really do like Rose in theory. 2 moments that I cry in this movie, always, is Paige's scene, like, at the very opening. Oh, and this brings us back full circle to Fast and Furious and the idea of, like, a good action movie. The opening sequence of this movie is so great that one of my favorite Star Wars characters is Paige, and she's on screen for how many minutes?
Yeah.
Like maybe 3 minutes. And it just...
There's a book about the two of them.
Oh, that's great.
There's a novel about
That's awesome.
them. So,
but it's like...
if you want more of that story.
I might. But it's like, it's such a good moment that you can set up this 10-minute action sequence that has this whole arc, and it's like... Anyways, it's very, very good. I love that. I get very emotional for that. And then I think just at the end, I forget where the second part where and the moment where just like, yeah, the what I consider the climax of the film, which is the breaking moment, like the
when she cuts the ship in half.
Yeah, the cutting the ship in half. Like that whole is such a brilliant, like Rian Johnson. There's an artistry to this film in its storytelling and the way that the narratives all come together and the way that they work in a cinematic visual way, that he tells 3 like character-driven stories, like complete different arcs in this beautiful cacophony of no sound. Like, it's just brilliant that Rose and Finn survive because they're on the ground about to get executed, and that all the people in the ship survive because she, like, splits through it, and then Rey and Kylo, like, like, it just brings all of these 3 stories together in just this beautiful, like, the medium of film. You couldn't tell this. I mean, I read the Last Jedi novel. It's actually the only novelization I've read of a film. That's how much I love it. I really love The Last Jedi. It's the only one I've read the novelization
The
of.
novelization is fantastic.
It is really good. It's really good, and it gives you a little...
The Force Awakens,
gives you exactly what you want.
Not at all. The Force Awakens novelization is garbage.
I'm not even going to bother. But
Trash.
the Force Awakens, or the Last Jedi one, was totally worth reading. I do recommend it. It is the book.
For the prologue alone.
Oh, yeah.
The prologue with Luke.
Oh, yeah.
And we haven't even talked about Luke, really.
Oh, we haven't, no.
That is the biggest thing. Luke is the biggest part of this movie, and the reason why so many people are very, like, ardent detractors from the film. But I don't know if they necessarily fail. I think that there's a lot of people who understand exactly why they feel this. How can you not love his last scene?
Like, that's it. When you find out, and that's the other moment I think I get emotional, is when you go back to him at the Rock and you're like, yes, that's what's happening.
And he sees the 2 sons.
It's just like...
Yeah, but the whole point of this movie is, of Luke's story in this movie, is that the galaxy built up his story and built him up into a character that he could never live up to.
Yeah.
Right? It's the have you seen Spider-Man Far From Home yet?
Not yet, no, I'm sorry.
There's a line in it where Peter is like, I'll never live up to Tony Stark. Like, everybody wants me to be this thing. It's kind of in the trailers, right? It's like, everybody wants me to be this thing. And then Happy goes, Tony couldn't live up to Iron Man. And it's the same story with Luke, right? But of like Luke Skywalker isn't Luke Skywalker.
No, but they say it at the beginning. What do you want me to do? Like, go out and face the First Order with a laser sword? Like, it's like how preposterous. But at the same time,
that's how the movie ends.
That's how the movie ends, and how the little kids remember him.
Yeah, it's also it's mirrored in the movie itself, in the moment where he goes like, what's the Force? And she goes, it's a power that allows the Jedi to control people and lift things.
Yeah.
And he's like, everything you just said is complete. It's not about lifting rocks. And then the end of the movie, she goes, lifting rocks.
Yeah,
that's what saves the day, is she can lift a bunch of rocks.
And I think the beauty of that is the idea that there's a reason why archetypes exist, and there's a reason why stereotypes exist, and like, we play off them. So it's the idea that the Force is not lifting rocks, but it's so iconicized in lifting rocks that, like,
but it's not
can't
so
really separate it from that.
A lot of George Lucas's ideologies with the Force are based in Eastern religion, and there's a lot of Taoism in the original trilogy, and less so in the prequels. But this principle, there's a lot of Eastern influence in The Last Jedi, which is one of the things that makes it one of the most authentic Star Wars movies, because the original Star Wars film is a remake of The Hidden Fortress.
I remember you saying that.
Which is a Kurosawa film, and then this is a seeing the same scene from three perspectives is a direct reference to a film called Rashomon, which that the whole movie is told from three perspectives. And that's the whole film. And I think Rashomon might be a Kurosawa film as well. But the Taoist principle in this movie of something is not something, but is also that thing at the same time.
Yeah.
Right? So the Force is not lifting rocks, and yet the Force is also lifting rocks.
Right, yeah.
Right? So
it's so brilliant.
Luke is not the mythic hero of lore at the same time that he will always be that hero.
Yeah.
And people get mad of like, well, at the end, he's not even there. And it's like, if you're upset about the fact that he's not even there for that battle, you are Kylo Ren.
Yeah, like you missed the point.
And if you are Kylo Ren and you're not getting the point that you need to be a lot less Kylo Ren, then you are already lost. Yeah. Like, you're done. Yeah. Like, I'm Obi-Wan Kenobi and I'm going to chop off your legs and leave you to burn in a lava pit. Only this time I'm going to just kind of push you down so that you can't get out. We learned that lesson. Finish the job, Obi-Wan. Jeez. Yeah, like, if you're walking away from that movie, from these last two movies, not learning the lesson of your entitlement,
it's your fault, Kylo.
Yeah.
Like, you get so mad at them escaping, it's because of your hubris and your, like, you put onto Luke what, of course he didn't survive. Of course nobody could survive that much firepower. Yeah. Like, it's sort of where you're, like, on Hux's side, where you're like,
I think you got him.
Like, I think you got him.
You got him.
Like, of course, Kylo, he would have died. Yeah. Like, duh. Yeah. Have you ever seen him survive something like that? Because you believed something, you made it true.
But but that's the thing, is that Ben Solo has built up Luke Skywalker in his mind as being so much more than he actually is. Yeah. Right?
He's your uncle that didn't know what he was doing and made a really dumb choice and totally, like, screwed up your life.
There's a lot of people who want to say that, like, that Luke Skywalker in that moment, that's not the Luke Skywalker that we know from the original trilogy, and I totally beg to differ. Luke Skywalker from the original trilogy is impulsive. He's naive.
He doesn't stay on Dagobah. He leaves. Yeah. He does exactly what Yoda told him not to do. Yeah. And his friends all wind up in peril because of it.
He walks into the throne room and immediately betrays the rebellion because he wants to have a quippy one-liner for the Emperor. He doesn't recognize in that moment his own hubris and ego and lack of foresight and naivete doesn't allow him to recognize these two men that you're in this room with, they've got it over on you about 10 times over. Yeah. You think because you trained for a little bit with Yoda and because Yoda said, go face your father and then you'll be a Jedi, that now in this moment you're a Jedi. No, Yoda was saying, like, if you go confront him and you survive that, and not physically, but your soul survives that encounter and you remain a hero, you don't turn to the dark side, then you'll be a Jedi. Yeah. Then you'll be a Jedi. Know that suffering and be willing to make that sacrifice, and then you'll be a Jedi. Not go hand yourself over to your father and then you're a Jedi. That's not what he meant, right? Yeah. But Luke, in the same way that he thinks that the Jedi texts are important in this movie, and Yoda goes like, they're books.
But also...
Exactly your own lesson.
Yeah.
The Jedi are not the Force, and yet you are mourning paper with information on it, but that's not the important part. Everything that Rey needs, she already has. And Yoda's being clever because he knows she has the books. Yeah. But And it's another instance in this movie of it is what it is, but it's also what it's not.
Yeah, because the only reason Yoda burns that thing down is because he knows that the books aren't in there.
Because Yoda isn't destroying the books in that moment. He's teaching his people one last lesson.
Which, why don't more people talk about Yoda in this movie?
Right.
It's such a great scene.
It's such pure Yoda.
It's so, and the idea that, like, it's the beautiful, like, gravitas of he's like, it's time then. And then Yoda's like, time it is for you to look past a pile of old books or whatever it is. But it's like, he's agreeing, but at the same time, like, totally not. He's a Muppet that just, like, has weird ways of talking. Like,
the fact that Yoda is brilliant. What he is, this little green Muppet that talks in a funny way with a funny voice, is, like, again, he is what he is not, but also is that. Like, he's... As George Lucas always talks about him, it's the frog on the side of the road that if you choose to help, he'll grant you a wish, right? But like, or it turns out that he's a cursed wizard, right? There's something, because of your act of heroism, it turns out that this thing that you thought was something else turns out to actually be something that's important to your hero's journey, right? And again, it's the hubris of Luke Skywalker to think my hero's journey is over. I blew up the Death Star. I saved my father. My hero's journey is done. And Yoda being like, never. It doesn't end until it ends. And unfortunately for us, we're Jedi and we're eternal and our spirits live on in the Force, and I'm still here teaching you the same stupid lessons. Like, hits him on the head and he's like, oh, young Skywalker, I've missed you. And it's like, because to Yoda, it's like he's a 70-year-old man, but it's like, come on, I'm 900 and now at this point 70 years old, or whatever, right? It's like, come on, guy, like, get it together. Like you've got a lot of time left to become actually wise. But I think that people wanted Luke Skywalker, Jedi Master, wise master, and it's like, he is that. His lessons for Rey are all important lessons. He's absolutely right. The Jedi, at the height of their power, allowed Darth Sidious to rise and
destroy them. Yeah,
it's and this is why I know that Rian Johnson is a fan of the prequels, because the sort of stuff that I talk about with the prequels, he sums up in one line with Luke Skywalker. It's a deep breath, and by the end of it, Mark Hamill is like, he needs to take another breath, but he gets through it all in one line. That's the prequels. And that's the Jedi, and that's that story, and it's a Shakespearean tragedy that this group of heroes, galactic heroes, protecting everybody from evil, are so blinded by their own hubris that they can't see that they've created an environment that's perfect for Darth Sidious to take over the galaxy. And they play right into his hands. And at every turn, they do exactly what he needs them to do in order for his plan to come to fruition. And yet Luke, in those moments, is not recognizing in himself his own hubris of thinking that it's up to him as to whether or not the Jedi should continue or end. So it's not up to you. It's not up
to you, There's just...
You don't own the Force. The Jedi don't own the Force, but you also don't own this religion. But you don't own this set of ideologies. But
then the idea that he learns still in the movie, right? That him teaching Ben, right? In the end, right? Where he's like, and it's the fun, quirky, like, everything you just said is wrong. Like, I like that they can bring that back around in the end, right? And that's the goosebump moment, right? Where you're like...
Star Wars.
It's Star Wars, Star Wars,
right?
And I will not be the last Jedi.
And then I mean, like, just really quickly, the Princess Leia aspects of it.
Using the Force
to save herself in that moment.
And having a connection with her son.
The only thing that I will fault Princess Leia, General Organa, for, and this movie sort of supports it, is the idea that all of that power, it's the Spider-Man thing, great power, great responsibility, and she chooses not to utilize it.
To be a Jedi?
She didn't necessarily need to be a Jedi, and this is one of the things of like, it's like, this is why that black and white ideology of you're a Jedi or you're not a Jedi,
it's a problem. Yeah.
She, whether she knew it or not, her entire life was tapping into the Force.
Right.
Her son, any children that she would have had, would have likewise been connected to this Force. Her reluctance to accept that part of her life and that culture that she is intrinsically tied to is part of the downfall of Ben Solo. Because Han can't understand.
Right, yeah.
Han doesn't have that connection. He can understand as much as he can understand. But Leia could have related to her son in a way that nobody else could have, but she doesn't ever explore that part of her life out of fear. I think out of fear.
And what you're talking about...
That's my interpretation of the character, at least.
Makes me the saddest about this third movie is that it was supposed to be Leia's movie.
Yeah.
Like, Han got the first one, Luke got the second one, and Leia was supposed to get the third one. And they've had to change it. And I just think that the original movie would have been so much... It would have explored that, I think.
Hindsight, if you could have told the story knowing that Carrie Fisher wasn't going to be in the third one, and you could have flipped that and let Luke survive to the third one.
Yeah.
Having Holdo switching them in that moment.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think like having a moment where they're having that conversation and Holdo's like, somebody's got to stay behind, and for Leia to be like, pulls out a blaster, stuns her, and says, "Put her on the ship," and then for her to be her.
It would have been a waste of General Leia.
I don't think so. I think that would have been a good send off for her.
I don't know. I think
everybody says it should have been Admiral Akbar in that role. In the role that Admiral Holdo plays.
No.
But I don't think that you would have had the right dynamic.
No. And then, like, the whole thing is, like, it's important that she's a woman.
Poe would have respected Admiral Akbar.
Yeah, exactly.
There wouldn't have been the
biggest thing is, like, he knows Admiral Holdo because he goes, the Battle of whatever.
Chiron.
Yeah. And, like, so he's heard of her, but he's like, that doesn't look like who I imagined in my head. Whereas, like, he, like, Akbar is probably...
Exactly. And I mean, like, to be really clear, Holdo makes some calculated errors in the way that she deals with Poe Dameron. She dresses
totally
him down in that moment, and that's not what she should have done.
No, if she had brought him into the fold, but it was like, you know, he had sort of screwed up and he was being a bit cocky. So it's like she's not infallible, obviously. But I will say, I think that it would have been important.
She was reacting from an emotional place because, so the part of the story that isn't clear in the movie, but that you know from ancillary material, is that Holdo came with the cruiser and everything else that those bombers came from. They weren't there, right?
Okay.
Leia's contingent was the X-Wing squadron and a couple of transport ships. After the events of The Force Awakens, they put out the call of like, hey, we need to evacuate this base. Bring the cruiser, bring the frigates, bring bring all this stuff. We need to put together a plan in case they show up. Poe comes up with his plan, and then sacrifices
all of her people.
Holdo's resources and her people in that moment. And so Leia is mournful of the leadership moment that Poe screws up. Holdo is holding Poe responsible for the deaths of her friends. Right. Yeah, that's the piece that's missing there. So her actions are totally understandable.
Yeah.
Not necessarily excusable, because it's like you're in a position of authority. You got to put that aside and do what's best for everybody. But anyways, you were going to say something. Do you remember what it was?
Oh, when you say that, it now makes it harder for me to remember what it was.
I interrupted and then mansplained something.
No, it's all good. I think honestly it was just more about like Leia in the third movie. I thought in my idealistic versions of these movies that Leia and Kylo, like Leia and Ben's relationship, would have been explored in the third movie. Yeah. Like that there's something about his mother and that it parallels to like Anakin and his mother that I thought would have been a really nice bookend to me, this series.
That, as much as like The Force Awakens makes it seem like it's Han and Ben that were the problem, right? Like that. But,
oh no, it wasn't. It was Leia and Ben.
It was totally. Absolutely Leia did something Leia kept Ben at a distance, and that's why I say, like, my interpretation of the character,
Force,
my read,
is her being scared of it.
Is that she was afraid of that power.
Yeah, totally. It's why she would suppress it in herself and be wary of it in Ben, and think that the only thing she could do is give him to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because the thing is, Leia could have dealt with him because she's also Force sensitive, right?
Yep.
Like, so Leia could have dealt with Ben in a way that she just was too scared to, and passed him off to, and that's probably part of it too, is that I think that Han probably knew that Leia, like, there's more to the Force than Leia lets herself.
When we eventually get the story of all of that, and we'll get it eventually. Yeah. Somebody will put pen to paper, or it'll be a comic book or an animated series or something. We'll get that story, and I think when we do, we will, the script will be flipped on Han and Leia, where I think the expectation for a lot of the audience right now is that Han screwed up and left, and Leia was upset about that. Like, Leia was the one who was like, well, I guess he's gone now.
No.
But I think it's the other way around. I think Leia made an error, and Han lost his cool about it, and then was like, after this, I can't stick around. Yeah. I got it. Like, I have to leave. Yeah. This isn't going to work.
Because she messes up. It's something, because
very much what you're saying of, like, him knowing, like him saying to her, like,
we can.
You could have dealt with this, but you're afraid of the Force. You're afraid of being a Jedi. You've always been afraid of this because of Vader, because of, and it's like, and there are logical, justifiable reasons. Her father tortured her for presumably hours aboard the Death Star. Yeah, like, and she finds out later that was my dad.
Yeah, like, it just, like,
that, like,
there's so many things that are wrong.
She can't reconcile her past.
Yeah. No.
And embrace that part of herself.
And she turns it off by going back into, like, military leadership. Yeah. And, like, there's, I don't know. I just think it's really interesting. The idea that Luke says Han was Han about it. When, like, the idea of Kylo coming to, like, learn from... Yeah. We don't know really what that means. It's supposed to be, like, a little bit like we feel like there was maybe some combative nature to that. But I think it's because Han cares very deeply, and, like...
My interpretation of that is that Han was probably a little bit more like, why? Yeah. Why does he even need to be a Jedi?
Yeah. Why can't we just, like...
What do we need Jedi for? The galaxy is at peace. Yeah. Right?
Yeah. Like, why do you have to tame this? Why are you afraid of this power inside of him? Why doesn't he just get to be my son? Yeah. And, like, why can't he just, you deal with the Force? Why can't he just deal with the Force? And then be like, no, he needs to be, like, trained
like,
and
why
use
can't
his power.
Why can't he just race ships like I do? Like, why does he have to go be a Jedi? Yeah. Why does he have to go be Luke? That's unfair. That's an unfair thing to put on any kid.
Yeah, exactly. He can just be my son. Like, I really want this story.
You need to either read or listen to Last Shot, because Last Shot connects the sequel trilogy with Solo. And it's a story that's told in 2 time periods. Actually, I think maybe even 3.
You've talked about this before, where
it's
like
the Han and Lando story, and it's...
Yeah. I think I would really like it.
It's so good. It's one of my favorite Star Wars novels.
Solo is the next thing on my, like... I've threatened to watch it many times on Netflix, where I, like, hover over it and I was like, is it time now? And I'm like, no, I'm going to wait for, like, a really good... Because now I've gone through all of them. Okay, it's so hot in here and it's so late in my head.
It's so hot and so late, yeah.
But,
okay, let's rank it.
What a great episode of Thunderquack.
This is the most we've stayed on topic and talked about the Star Wars movie out of all of them. And I think that says something about this movie. I mean... And then on this viewing, and now with this conversation... Something's about to change in my rankings and my personal rankings. I don't know how it'll reflect in the rankings of this.
This has always been my Star Wars movie. Yeah. I say, as I was watching it, I was reciting, like, the lines in a way that I didn't realize I knew. Yeah. And, I don't know. This is, like, the moment I saw it, I was like, this is my Star Wars movie. And Return of the Jedi will always be, like, close to my heart. But, I mean...
It's important. There's a nostalgia there.
There's a nostalgia. But... I think that it's obviously, like, one of my favorite Star Wars movies. But I think the Last Jedi is my favorite one.
You think so?
Ranking. I think I like it more than Force Awakens.
I think I like it more than The Force Awakens as well. Yeah. And I think that this was the one where we expected the pattern to break, and all of a sudden for this movie to be shifted somewhere in between. And I was going like, is it better than Return of the Jedi? Is it better than The Force Awakens? Is it better than Empire Strikes Back? So I think after I watched it, I finished watching it this afternoon on the train, grinning ear to ear as I was watching it. There's so many parts about it. When Rey shows up in the Falcon at the end to save the day.
Whoa, they hate that ship.
Such a good moment. Good. It's such a good moment.
Can I just say, seeing those little moments of like Ben Solo being like, blow that ship out of the sky.
Piece of junk.
Piece of junk. Like, it's just like, he grew up on that ship. Like,
yeah, that's his house.
Come on, that's his house. Like,
but it represents everything he lost.
Yeah.
We can't get into this
again.
Sorry,
I know, sorry.
I was going like, okay, it's definitely better than The Empire Strikes Back for me. Mm-hmm. It's arguable, is it better than Return of the Jedi? But if I'm saying that The Force Awakens is better than Return of the Jedi for me, and I feel right now where I'm at, that The Last Jedi is better than The Force Awakens. I love The Force Awakens. I love it. It's really such a good movie. This is tough.
Yeah. It's tough.
Because if you had asked me 6 months ago if The Last Jedi was my favorite okay, first of all, The Last Jedi is not my favorite Star Wars movie. No. Solo is my favorite Star Wars movie.
Okay, yes, that's been
very clear. In the Skywalker saga, I think as of August, it's not August, as of July 29th at 11 o'clock at night, oh my goodness. Yeah, The Last Jedi is number one in my ranking.
I also feel like after having listened to us talk about it, I imagine that somebody else's ranking has gone up as well.
I hope so.
Because I think talking about it, I'm always biased going into this one though. Like I've talked about it more than any of the other ones, and know that like it's such.
There is something ineffably special about this movie. There's something ineffable about all of Star Wars.
Oh yeah,
the entire thing. Yeah. Like just like. There's some alchemical mixture of Western science fiction, opera, samurai film. Like it is George Lucas just took everything and threw it into a gumbo of cinema that nobody else has ever been able to replicate to that level. And the only thing that's come close in the last 40 years has been the last 11 years of MCU. And really in the MCU, only the last 2 years, maybe 3.
In terms of like cinematic scope and
in terms of getting into a same place as Star Wars.
Yeah.
And I think that it's starting to maybe even eclipse it a little bit. And that's fine. Like it's like nothing lasts forever. Things are impermanent. Yeah. So I'm okay with that.
But in a way,
this movie is the hope of Star Wars maybe coming back and being just as relevant. I mean, like, you don't get to the MCU without Star Wars, so that relevance is always going to be there for it. But and Kevin Feige would be the first one to acknowledge that Phase 2 is full of Star Wars references. So Phase 2, in every Phase 2 movie, somebody gets their hand cut off.
Oh, no way, really?
That's Kevin Feige's tribute to Star Wars.
Oh, how cool.
Yeah.
That's fun. Because it is, though, and the thing that, it's also very important for us to talk about Rian Johnson and his influence on this movie, and that there is going to be more, and it's going to be him continuing on stories that we didn't know. His own thing. In a way that Star Wars has never been able to go beyond Skywalker. Yeah. And so the fact that brilliantly this last episode is called Rise of Skywalker, when actually it will be the opposite of that, which is brilliant.
It's the end of the Skywalker saga.
Of the Skywalker saga, but it also allows the universe to continue. And I think that the best thing about this movie is that it's cut the cord between the people that will continue with the Star Wars universe. Because frankly, the people that didn't like this movie, I don't want you part of my new Star Wars universe, because you won't understand it and you won't appreciate it, because it's going to speak to something integral and universal and timely in a way that
Star Wars is and always has been for everybody.
Yeah.
And the idea that Star Wars belonged only to boys and men
Yeah. Like,
was always wrong because Princess Leia was there from the beginning. She's the only one with her act together in that movie.
Yeah.
Those boys would have died on the Death Star if not for her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it has always been for everybody.
Mm-hmm. Like I said,
But
my mom got me into it. Yeah.
But now it can represent that properly. And that's where we're at, is that in 2018, when this movie came out, the world was at a place where it was important that this movie be representative and go out on a limb. And it doesn't go out on much of a limb other than just putting a bunch of women at the front of the story.
Yeah,
and
it's
making,
just a story.
And making all of the guys doofy guys. They're not doofy guys. I mean, like I think that they all... everybody has natural arcs that make sense, and they and like
I could talk about this movie. The more you're talking, the more I'm like, we didn't even really talk about Kylo and the brilliance of the fight scene,
or the connection between him and Rey.
Connection between him and Rey, but also the fact that he manipulates her. Like in that moment,
he negs the crap out of her 3 times in this movie.
Like negs the crap.
He negs. You know what negging is, right? Where you, in order to you undermine a person in order to put them in a place of vulnerability so that you can take advantage of them.
Yeah. Right? But the best thing is that he knows the power that he gives her and then tries to take away in that moment. The only reason he can kill Snoke is because he knows that she will fight with him. Yeah. Like, he's put it so perfectly, but the thing that's so brilliant is that he doesn't realize that comes from a connection that is also real. Like, he's been like, I've manipulated it perfectly, and I'm going to take advantage of this, and like,
that he's in total control.
I'm in total control. But then
he doesn't realize that he's actually in love with her.
But exactly, and the idea that that at the end he's kind of like, oh no, like it's like it didn't quite work out.
You're still holding up. Yeah. When he screams that, it's so. And she has that realization of like, oh, you're an abusive jerk.
Yeah, like...
And she's like, okay, this doesn't work. Like, because there's a moment where she turns in the movie when he tells her the story, his perspective, and she goes, oh, like, you're tragic.
Yeah.
You're not doing this because you're an entitled little rich boy that like you're not just a murderous snake. Yeah. Like, someone did this to you.
Yeah.
Right? This was thrust upon you. Yeah. And then in that moment afterwards, she, like, after the battle, she goes, oh, but you're committing to it.
Yeah, like, you believe that
I've given you the opportunity to make a choice for the first time in your life and to be your own person, and you've chosen to be the person that Snoke turned you into.
Yeah.
We're
like,
done
it's just,
here. And that's where she's just like, we're done. Yeah. This is over. Give me back the lightsaber. I'm leaving.
Yeah. Like, anyway, sorry, we didn't even talk about that, but I just, like, as you're talking, I'm like, yes, there's something. Yeah. And it's also, I will say, quite tragically, this watch around and my realizations about Kylo Ren have, like, burst my Reylo bubble a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm a little sad, but also cannot wait to see the fruition of that scene. Somebody at Comic-Con had a picture of, like, Rey, like, crouched down with the TIE fighter in the background, and I'm like, everybody's just so... I can't wait. I can't wait to see it on a big screen and what the context of that scene is. Like,
this is our official ranking now.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
Starting from the bottom, going to number 1. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
This is probably the only Star Wars ranking on the internet that will keep it that way, and I'm quite excited.
And I say all of that, and I'm confident saying that we're putting The Last Jedi at number 1 in July of 2019, knowing that Rise of Skywalker will be number 1 in 2020. So what we're going to do is we'll be back when we start doing Star Wars Ranked in 2020. It's going to be its own show. Sorry, Star Wars Ranked. When we do Thunderquack Ranked, it's going to be its own show. I don't know exactly what it's going to be yet. We have to kind of put that together. I have some ideas of directions that we could go with it. most recently, maybe even as a live show that we do locally, which could be cool that we then record and release on YouTube or whatever. But that's obviously a big undertaking.
Cool.
And I'll have to find other people to help us with it. If we go that way. One way or another, though, it'll be its own show. And what it'll be is we'll take a franchise, we'll take all of the movies, and we will discuss the crap out of it for 2 hours, and then at the end
go through the whole,
we'll rank it.
Yeah.
Right. So we'll have a ranking of it. Yeah. So when we do Rise of Skywalker, we'll be doing Rise of Skywalker when it releases on Blu-ray. And digital or whatever, right?
So that we can fully absorb it.
So that we've had a lot of time to see it multiple times, because it would like the immediate reaction is gonna be too. It's too subjective at that point. You need some distance from it, and then to come back into it, and like the distance that I have from The Last Jedi now, and then coming back in and watching it, and I made a very concerted effort to watch it this time, of not like it's on in the background. I was like, okay, I put my phone aside, and then I watched it on my phone, so I can't be doing other things if I'm watching it on my phone. Really focusing on it and remembering just how great a film it is. It's like, well, you have to have that distance. So we will with that, and then we'll have an official ranking of the Skywalker saga for that. But before we do that one, we're gonna do Harry Potter first.
I'm excited for the Harry Potter one.
Awesome. That's it for the Thunderquack podcast this week. Thank you for listening. And for the summer.
More or less. I mean, we might be back a little bit, but
you can stay up to date with all the latest Thunderquack podcasts by hitting thunderquack.com. And I guess I just, you can follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
You follow us on thunderquack.com. Follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/thunderquack. On Twitter @thunderquacknet, and on Instagram @thunderquackpodcast. Thunderquack podcast, yeah. Nice.
You can also follow us individually on Twitter. I'm at Akonkin, AKONKIN. You can add an 86 to that for Instagram.
And I'm at Arkwolf, ARKWULF. And if you like what you hear, you can support us in 2 ways. First, by going to store.thunderquack.com and picking up some merchandise. Get yourself some cool stuff. There's a shirt up there, if you're a big fan of The Last Jedi, that is We Are the Spark. Yeah. So that's the very specific Last Jedi shirt. And I kind of meant it when I did it. It's obviously a reference to The Last Jedi, but I also meant it kind of as the Thunderquack community is a bunch of really cool people that are evolved human beings, I think. And I wanted it to kind of be our thing of, there's a lot of really unevolved human beings out there right now saying really stupid things and doing really dumb stuff, and let's go ahead and say putting people in concentration camps.
Yeah.
And it was kind of my thing. I wanted it to kind of be a thing of like,
let's make the world a better place.
Yeah, like the resistance. We need a resistance in real life, not just in Star Wars. So if that sounds like a good idea, you should go to store.thunderquack.com and buy one of those t-shirts. I still need to get one. I need to get one before Star Wars Celebration next year for sure. But I got a year to worry about that. The other way to support us is by going to patreon.com/thunderquack and kicking in with your monthly pledge of support. $1 gets you early access to the Thunderquack podcast. It gets you access to the exclusive Facebook group and other random stuff that we'll be doing on Patreon. We're going to use the Patreon, especially, again, once Arrow is done and this is the main focus for you and I, we'll actually be doing more stuff.
I think it was really cool. I got to use the actual Patreon app while I was in San Diego Comic-Con. I live streamed some things on the little, thing that they've got. It's like a cool little community that's just for Patreon, so it's kind of
cool. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.
Cool. We are the spark that will light the fire that will burn the First Order down.